Yes, thank you. Um, Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to very briefly go over some of the general ideas around testing services today and in the industry and how they are affecting the way that we create our software and our applications in general across our enterprises. I think over the last course of 18 months or so, maybe a little bit more, different trends have risen, and we've had to deal with them from a QA perspective in many different ways. I think that there are few arenas in which we see such change, constant change and evolution in terms of the challenges that we face. Providing a strategy as a QA manager for a product or an application that is going to affect thousands of users brings along the responsibility to understand these specific trends and how I can include them and how I can help the organization manage them and assure that the eventual impact that they may have in the product does not affect the productivity or the level of quality and expectations that we build for our end customers. Definitely, all the new compliances and auditing requirements, overall complexity, Dean spoke of the cloud, whether private or public, all the security elements that encompass building an application, managing very secure data from all perspectives, as well as understanding that we have limited resources to achieve all of our quality goals, make this a very interesting and a very challenging service, as well as a QA manager, a very challenging arena to be able to create new ways, new practices, and more efficient approaches into quality instead of just looking at it from a textbook perspective. So in the way that we find best practices to adapt our testing lifecycle or our quality lifecycle to our products, whatever they may be, we should always take into account what's going on around us and how it will affect that specific life cycle that we're implementing on top of our applications. One of the things that I think is extremely relevant is that products in themselves do require a certain level of quality. And as an organization that creates a product, you need to understand what that level of quality is. And that is going to fulfill the expectations of your users and your customers as well. That doesn't mean that you have to have the entire quality assurance practice implemented, but you need to make sure that whatever level you reach meets those initial expectations. Every day, I see organizations that are implementing a combination of initiatives in order to make their IT group more effective, that including the QA group. And I see them striving for new outsourcing models, striving for new levels of maturity that may be ITIL compliant or CMMI compliant or COVID compliant. But I wonder if we've done the analysis of how much value that is going to derive and if that really is within a time frame that will generate the benefits that I'm expecting and will help me reach my goals. Sometimes prioritizing the level of detail that I need within my QA tasks, as well as the amount of practices and maturity that I need to implement in order to have a very solid product, a very dynamic, very flexible, very easy to use product doesn't require that I have an optimized level of maturity around my QA strategy. So I think that it's one of the major things that today, with limited resources, with the overall economic standpoint around IT and how we need to be more efficient and be more focused in optimizing the processes that we have. I think it's very relevant that we look at it in terms of what are the priorities, what are my goals, and how much time I have to obtain that. It sometimes pays off very well to be overly ambitious, but sometimes I need to be very realistic in terms of how fast I can do that overhaul within my testing or QA process in order to achieve the results that I need. Some of the major changes that we see today that are coming into every single QA engagement that we see. One is that we're going back to having very hands-on people at all levels. We see that in general, the community of quality and software testing is getting very much involved in everyday tasks. So even though we may have a QA manager, because it's a resource that has developed a very complex strategy to validate quality, it's still a person that gets involved, very hands-on, and executes test cases any day within their team. So we can continue to call them managers, but they really are more of leaders in terms of setting the performance bar by example. We used to be very test-oriented. And if you ask any tester, there's a very clear line between the community of what a QA group does and the QA versus development. And today we're faced with the challenge of, at all levels, change the way we see issues, problems, solutions from a project view. We can no longer stand as an isolated group, even though we are trying to provide an objective vision of the quality of the product. But we need to be part of the overall product that we're trying to produce. So we're seeing that more and more testers are getting involved in the entire phasing of the project. Also, customers in general are sometimes concerned of how does their quality compare to anyone else's. And maybe because it's very new in the industry, it's a very new arena in general terms. It's a very young practice in the outsourcing world. There really is no right benchmark. And what I encourage in general is that everyone creates their own. There's nothing easier to do than to measure your own baseline and improve from that point forward. Sometimes comparisons help. Yes, they definitely do. But it'll provide you with a more solid point of start so that you know that you're moving forward. Also, quantifying the value of testing. It's a subject that's very, very well known by all the QA managers that are trying to sell project managers, application owners, in terms of investing more into testing and not cutting budgets there first. And I think that finally people are understanding that it's not just testing because I need to test, but it's because it's valuable for me to know the level of quality before someone else is being impacted by that quality in itself. So the value of knowing and finding new mechanisms to measure that within your own business and in terms that make sense to your business, it's definitely something that we're going to see more and more. Finally, and very quickly, I keep hearing when people talk about estimation of the testing effort and how much we depend on what development is doing and how many drops they're going to have and how does the development life cycle is going to